Hey guys, Flint Holbrook here with TruckSpy. I want to thank you for joining us first and foremost on this Thursday afternoon. I'm calling this Friday Eve. At least for me, it's been 4 Mondays in a row. So I'm looking forward to the long weekend, and I bet you are too. So we got a lot to cover today on maintenance. I've got Jim with us. Tim Goff is also with us. He's having a little bit of spotty internet connection, so he is attempting to rejoin right now, but we're going to go ahead and get things started in his absence. First thing I want to tell you, and if you've been on these webinars, you've already heard this spiel, but on the right hand of your screen, there's chat's polls. So in the chat, feel free to post whatever you'd like, ask questions. That's really the point of the chat. I'll go ahead and post the first message over here so you see it pop up. We'll be answering questions that you post in the chat throughout the discussion today. This will be a panel, so it's going to be pretty interactive. So post what you want to know. And then in polls, I'm going to go ahead while I introduce our guests, and let's start off with a poll here just real quick. How do you track your maintenance is the question. And the answers are, I guess at it, I use a notepad, I use Excel, I've got a dedicated tool, or I'm not sure somebody else in my organization handles it. So we're just kind of curious here to guide the discussion on how you're doing your maintenance. So let me introduce our guest. So I've got Jim Vore, who owns Vorzik Transportation. His safety guy Dale was on the 2 weeks ago webinar about drive cameras, and he did a phenomenal job. So we're really happy to have Jim with us. We've got Tim Goff with Oscar Mike. Tim, you guys have heard from Tim. Tim brings, I guess he brings the thunder, right? He's going to talk to you real about running your business. So we're thrilled to have him on the session today. So it looks like as you're answering those polls, we got Notepad, Excel, software, and not sure. At least nobody's guessing at their maintenance so far. So let's just jump in. Jim, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your company and your maintenance program and kind of how you've learned and adapted, because I've seen your dashboard. It's pretty impressive. Hey, Jim, you're on mute there, my friend.
How about that?
There you go. Okay. Perfect.
Thanks. We'll try this again. Well, thanks for having me, Flint. Appreciate what you're doing about spreading the good word about the different things that affect contractors. We're a contractor that's based in Erie, Pennsylvania. Our company's had a contract with FedEx for a long time. My wife and I bought the business, an existing business, about 6.5 years ago. So that's how long I've been doing it. Right now, we're across, I guess, 3 states, 9 locations, and we run 56 trucks and have about 80 drivers. And from a maintenance perspective, we own all but one of our own trucks. We have one lease, and we can talk more about that as we get into it if you like. But we own the vast majority of our trucks. From a maintenance perspective, I do have my own garage. I have a fleet manager plus 2 additional mechanics who focus on just our own equipment. And so we like having the control of our maintenance program, and we feel that nobody's going to do it as well as we do it, from third-party vendors. We certainly use third-party vendors. We have an excellent relationship with a local Volvo Mack dealer who also has many locations, pretty closely tied to the locations that we operate. So that's an important relationship for us, especially when it comes to warranty work and things like that. And we also use third-party vendors pretty aggressively, especially if it's further away from our home location. And so managing those relationships is obviously important in it as well. So I think one of the things that people underestimate potentially is the importance of those relationships, whether it's with your dealer or your vendors. And it's good to foster good relationships on those. And then on the technology side, we use a dashboard and we use it every single day. My fleet manager is responsible for keeping it and maintaining it. It is, I guess you'd call it spreadsheet based, because it is. It's not in a bona fide system at this point in time. But it's pretty cool. I mean, we use Omnitrax as our e-log provider. And so we download our data, and we've got it automated that it automatically populates. We have our records kept in there as well with a bunch of drop-down menus and things like that. And then what I get as the owner I get a one-page dashboard visibility that's kind of like a heat map that I can see about 20 different maintenance items in one page, and it's forecasting how many weeks out each one of those maintenance items are, and it's color coded based on how far out they are. So if something's just been done and it's not needed for another 12 weeks or something like that, it's going to be green. If it's getting close, it's going to be yellow, and if it's due or overdue, it's going to be red. And so I can see at a glance across my entire fleet, kind of any of my key routine maintenance items. I can see what needs to be done and what has already been done. And so it's real simple with my instructions for my fleet manager, which is keep it all green, right? So that makes it nice and simple, but yet really effective. So I can stay on top of that. It's cloud-based, so I can see it anywhere that I can get an internet connection, and anywhere in the world, and it's real time too. So it takes us about 2 minutes to update it. So
in full disclosure, I saw Jim's dashboard, and Jim, I stole a couple of items from you and put in our software. So if you're using TruckSpy to track your scheduled maintenance, you have a derivation of Jim's maintenance dashboard. It looks a little different, works a little different. The color coding is the same. So, yeah. Tim, tell us a little bit about your maintenance program. I know you got some military maintenance experience. You gave me an anecdote about pilots getting in airplanes and things were still broken after they'd been in the shop one time. And I know that you spend a lot of time and effort on your maintenance program. You're doing a lot of inspections. Give us a little color on what you're doing.
Sure, I appreciate the chance to be here today. And we are, by the way, TruckSpy maintenance users, so we'll be able to talk about some of that. As we talked a few webinars ago on maintenance philosophy as to whether you insource or outsource, you use warranty or whatever. I mentioned at that time that we do our own maintenance. We actually have a combination of insourced maintenance as well as vendor-based maintenance programs. So we track all of that, of course, in spreadsheets. And we use some other tools. We track all our maintenance activity in the Mitchell One system, which is a commercial system used by many diesel shops in order to provide invoices to customers and track the activities that were performed on tractors. So we have every maintenance activity that we perform on any tractor, then there's an invoice, shall we call it, in the system. So we can go back and search those and track anything that we did. One of the things to keep in mind as a FedEx contractor is that we have to be able to provide those detailed maintenance records upon request to FedEx, right? So there's a couple things that you have to be able to do. If you're in a bad accident, all your maintenance records are discoverable. And so you need to have maintenance records so that if you get into one of those situations, you can provide those records. You don't want to be in a situation where, oh, well, we don't remember the last time we checked the brakes on that tractor. That would be a really bad situation to be in. So having a detailed tracking system like Jim has, like we use, it strengthens your position in times of when bad things happen. And so you need to be able to have these records. It's not just something that people who are, very detail oriented have. It's actually a requirement that you need to have those records available, and they would be discoverable in certain situations. So we certainly, to have an effective maintenance program, I think is you have to have a number of elements. You have to think about what are you trying to accomplish. And, the first thing you want to do is have tractors that can run the line every day. The second thing is those tractors need to be able to pass a DOT inspection that could happen at any time, particularly given the FedEx Ground's CSA situation. You're much more likely to get inspected. And so then how do you go about creating a program that yields that outcome, right? You want to limit breakdowns. You want to reduce the cost of repairs. All these kinds of things take pre-planning. So what we do is we do DOT inspections on every tractor, at least 2, most of the time 3 times a week. And of course, you expect drivers to perform good pre and post trip, and we use the whip around software to kind of bring some discipline to that. But at the same time, I have maintenance professionals in all 7 locations. We run 62 tractors in 7 different locations across 3 states. And every tractor is getting looked at least 3 times a week by a maintenance professional, someone who's trained. and they document those inspections, and we keep them on file. And that way, you know, that tractor can pass a CSA inspection. You know that it's roadworthy. You can determine whether or not, you know, this thing might be due for a tractor wash. We have a wash schedule. Your tractors will survive a CSA inspection way more effectively if it's clean. Sounds basic, but it's true. So then you have to, all these different elements that Jim talked about and I'm mentioning require you to plan ahead on how you're going to do those things, so that you get into a process where you always do those things on kind of a scheduled basis.
Tim, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm hearing you say, and I'm, again, I don't want to interject what you're not saying, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got to have a maintenance philosophy here, right? Maintenance is like pretty core to your business if you own a trucking company. And so you as a manager kind of need like a philosophy of, this is how we're going to do things. And this is going to be our plan, right? And we're going to continually measure and monitor and adjust our plan as the situation changes, right? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, and you know, the old quality, the quality cliche, plan, do, check, act, right? We kind of do that. We try to do that in everything that we do. If you're not planning, then your costs are going to be out of control. So then, and you're probably not going to get all the things done in a timely manner. You're probably not going to document them effectively. So you have to have a plan, and then you have to implement the plan and constantly adjust in places where the plan is insufficient. And then constantly look for ways to reduce your cost as well. I mean, maintenance is expensive, right? So we do things like I had Freightliner do an analysis on the break fix performance of the particular brand model of tractor that I use. And of course, they have thousands and thousands of those tractors in their database. And they gave me the break fix performance and what were the top 20 issues that happened to those tractors. And then I had them build me a parts inventory list based on that break fix requirement. And so then I stocked parts for the top 20 issues in the tractors that I own based on what's in the Freightliner system. And that way I can repair tractors from inventory. So that reduces my time, my downtime, because on the top 20 issues, if it happens to one of my tractors, I have the part in stock. And then I can get that part replaced within a couple of days. Well, you don't behave like that. You don't get those things done without having a plan, right? You have to know these things are going to happen. How are we going to deal with it? Things are going to happen on the road. So what are you going to do on the road? We have tire vendors in every location where we go to and along the interstates that we typically travel. Now, I'm a solo guy. I'm not a team guy. But there are maintenance solutions that you can pre-plan and pre-negotiate so that you have scenario planned. And I know I've used that word before, Flint, but you kind of think through all the things that could happen and you have a plan for how you would handle all those things so that your maintenance team, your management team, when something occurs, there's no chaos. You just pull out the plan and execute it. You already know what you're going to do. So then you just do it. And that's our maintenance philosophy. So that's how we handle maintenance on a day-to-day basis, and that's how we handle it when things happen. So there's scheduled maintenance and unscheduled maintenance, right? Scheduled maintenance is the great plan that Jim has, and we have something similar. And as I mentioned, we're transitioning to the TruckSpy maintenance management program, which is really excellent. But then there's the unscheduled piece of that, on how are you going to deal with things that happen that were not scheduled. Yep. So we keep a lot of spare tractors around so that if we have a truck go down in the blocks, we don't miss a run. That costs you more capital. So how do you plan ahead for that and make sure that you have a philosophy on how you handle spare tractors, as an example? So I could go on and on about all these scenarios, but that's just an example of how.
Yeah. So maintenance, and I see way too often that FedEx contractors, and I don't want to pick on the small contractors, but I see this more with the smaller contractors that they don't always have, or you know what your scheduled maintenance should be, right? But you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants on getting your scheduled maintenance done on time in the right way. And you're certainly flying by the seat of your pants on all the other maintenance that you're doing. Oh crap, we're out on the road and and we lost a tire, or we needed to change a windshield because we failed a DOT inspection or whatever. And I think what Tim and Jim, I think you're going to echo this point, is that those are all things that can be prevented if you've invested some management horsepower and built a maintenance program that is measurable and maintainable. Jim, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to be able to do both, right? You have to do your routine preventable maintenance, and then you have to be able to react to something that happens and it's completely out of your control, right? And you have to be able to react and react as quickly as possible. And so, some of the things that we've done for the unexpected things, number one, we put in place a service line, right? So it's posted in every single one of my trucks. It's a phone number. It's manned 24/7 by someone, either my fleet manager or one of my other mechanics or by me. And if a driver has an issue any day of the week, any time of day, and it's a mechanical issue, they call that number, right? And somebody's going to answer, and they're going to try to help them fix it. Now, I have my fleet manager or my mechanics answer most of those calls because, it might be a light's out and they need to change a fuse or a light bulb, something simple. We have extra supplies in the truck and they can walk them through that. And we actually have some YouTube videos that we have in-house that, hey, you need to change the fuse for this. Here, I'm going to send you the link, or check on our website. There you go. You can watch the video of how to do it. It's a 30-second, 45-second video. Oh, I got it, right? Does it. He can see it, and bang, it's done, and he's back moving again. But back to your point about philosophy. The philosophy is we want to tackle small problems before they become big problems. And that's a big part of maintenance. And so we want to, if there's a little issue that happens, call, text that service line. We're going to get on it. We're going to try to see what it is, look into it as quickly as possible, and fix the problem right from the beginning. I'm very fortunate. My dad he's a retired mechanic of 50 plus years. And so a couple simple things, grease is a lot cheaper. Grease and oil are a lot cheaper than, changing an engine. Obvious, but, words of wisdom. So tackle the small problems before the big become big problems, and have a system in place where your drivers are reporting problems when they happen, and have in your system the ability, the resources and the wherewithal to respond to them and fix them quickly before they become much bigger problems.
I want to dig in, Jim, to two things that you just said. First of all, and I think this is super important, and a lot of people don't do this right, having your drivers report issues as soon as they happen. All right, so you've got the phone number. I think vehicle inspections go right hand in hand with having a phone number and somebody to contact. How are you guys managing vehicle inspections? And as Tim said earlier, they're super important from a liability perspective.
Yeah. So I think Tim said he uses Whip Around. We also use Whip Around. We like that little app because we set it up so that we have our drivers do it in a certain way. But you're doing a vehicle inspection, and there's a handful of photos that you have to take at the beginning and the end of your trip to make sure that you're taking care of those things. So it could be your tail lights, make sure that they're working. It could be a variety of other things. The coolant level. I have ours take a picture of the coolant level on the pre-trip every day, right? That way I know that they're opening the hood. They say, oh yeah, I did my pre-trip and my Whip Around pictures, right? Well, I made them have a picture of the coolant level to make sure that the hood comes open every day. So we capture that, and I have driver managers who are responsible for their regions, and they're reviewing all of these Whip Around results to see if there are any defects that are not reported. One thing that's critical is drivers are not punished when they report a problem, right? We encourage that. We say, we want to know the problem, right? And tell us about it so that we can get it addressed and fixed. A lot of drivers, they don't want to show me the picture of the bent bumper that we put on the back because they backed it into a dolly. Like, show me. You're not going to get in trouble for it. You keep doing it repeatedly. Yeah, you're going to get in trouble for it, but you're not going to get in trouble for it. I just want it fixed. It's there to protect us and move on. So we just want to encourage people to do that. And we keep reinforcing it. And we're not punishing people for reporting it. we're encouraging and recognizing them for doing it. And then we spread the word with the rest of the drivers. Hey, you know what? We avoided a big problem. Thanks to Joe, you know, he did a great pre-trip. He identified a broken spring on whatever. And we spread the word and we highlight it and encourage other people to do it too.
And I think making that hood come open is really important. And obviously, if you use a whip around, that's a great tool. Like if either that or your ELD, obviously the ELD, the inspections are not nearly as dynamic and thorough as whip around. But there's a bunch of tools out here, guys, to help you do maintenance. You can build your own, like Jim did with a spreadsheet. You can use a tool to track your scheduled maintenance. You can use a tool for your DVIRs. There are a bunch of tools. The only caveat I want to throw out here on tools, guys, is I got like 6 hammers in the garage. And if I don't ever go out and pick one up and drive a nail, the tool is completely useless. So you have to build management processes and invest effort and energy in the tools, implementing the tools, using the tools, analyzing the results. Don't just buy a tool and be like, problem solved. I've got whip around now. You've got to build it into your company culture. You've heard me say this on like the last 6 webinars. So be a manager, dig into your business, buy a tool, but then use the tool properly.
Flint, can I just say one thing? You're giving me a lot of credit for the tool that I'm using. I can't take the credit for it, honestly. I do have to give credit to my friend John Haldy, who built that for me. And I think you've had him on your program in the past as well. But Haldy he's the one who really inspired it and built it, and we've been using it ever since. So I appreciate the credit for it, but it's really Haldy who gets the credit.
Yeah, well then I owe him thanks for inspiration on my tool. So there we go. Yeah, that's fun. So all right, people. Tim, I know you've got a guy named Chris in charge of your maintenance. Jim, it sounds like you've got multiple driver managers. How should contractors think about people in their maintenance program? Who's responsible for what? And I know that the answer to this is going to depend, right? Because if I'm a contractor with 6 trucks, I may not have a manager. So how do you guys think about who should be responsible for what in the organization?
Okay, I'll jump in here, Jim. So yes, I do have a maintenance professional, a guy who's spent his career managing maintenance in big fleets. You know, he comes from a multi-billion-dollar company, so he has got a lot of skills, and he's responsible for maintenance at all 7 locations that we operate. And 4 of those locations, he uses his own team to perform the maintenance, maybe supplemented on occasion, depending on the situation, with outside vendors. And then we have pre-established relationships with vendors in 3 of the other locations. And so that wasn't always the case. When I had, 3 trucks, then 6 trucks, then 10 trucks, I was responsible for maintenance. I was the AO, and I made sure that all the maintenance was done on a schedule, and I hired the vendors, and we stayed on top of it. And it was a lot of work, and we put some programs in place to try to lighten the load. But you have to have somebody whose job it is to be planning the maintenance and then making sure that maintenance is getting executed. And one of the things I want to point out, because we mentioned, Jim mentioned his service number. I have an 855 number also that all my drivers and FedEx folks can always contact the duty manager. And what I require my drivers to do is to inform their operations manager of any issues. And then the operations manager's job is to do 2 things. 1, to get maintenance involved, and 2, to make sure that we're managing our responsibilities with respect to FedEx. So if we think that once we assess the problem, then we're going to determine whether or not we think we can resolve it in any kind of short period of time, and we communicate to FedEx, or are we going to have one of our other drivers go fetch those loads or tell FedEx they need to do a rescue or whatever. Because it's exceptionally important that you keep FedEx in the loop on those. But I encourage you to use that number as well. And the reason we do it is operating multiple locations, all FedEx and drivers, all employees, they only have to have a number in their phone. And we make sure that the number is pointed to the right person and that they can get the help that they need. But it is important that you think through who's doing what in your company with respect to maintenance. I've been through vendors who I thought were really good that turned out to have not served me very well. So you have to be in a position to be able to assess that. And as the company has gotten larger, then I've certainly spent money to try to hire higher quality, more experienced type folks, both on the management team and on the maintenance team. So, if you're going to get great results, it's most likely because you involve great people.
I'll echo everything that Tim's just said. You got to have one person responsible for it, right? At the end of the day, you need someone who is responsible and accountable, who owns it as their responsibility. So smaller contractors it's going to be the AO, it's going to be the owner. They're going to do that. And when I got involved in the business, we had 18 trucks to start. It was the prior owner, and he did everything himself, and he did it all in a notebook. He would have answered. He does it on a notepad, and it's hard to be scalable that way. But there has to be one person specifically accountable for it. And so that started out as me, like Tim, and now it's my fleet manager who does that. He's fully responsible.
So what we're hearing on people is whether you as the business owner are going to own maintenance or you're going to hire somebody to own maintenance, somebody in the organization has to be the maintenance czar to make sure that there's processes and things are
100%
on time as needed. Yeah. So guys, think about that. I mean, obviously, if you're the business owner, the buck stops with you. But as you hire somebody, as your business grows, think about how do I define their job role and put carrots and sticks in place to make sure that this stuff gets done, so that and even if that's vendors, right? It wouldn't necessarily have to be an employee. If you use a mechanic off the yard, next to the yard, put some parameters around that. And maybe they're doing inspections. Maybe they know when your scheduled maintenance is due. The reality is you just need to build a process and stick to it to get this thing done. And somebody's got to be responsible at the end of the day. So, all right. So Gerald wants to know, Jim, at what point as your business grows, like how many mechanics, when do you hire a maintenance manager type person? How many mechanics do you need per truck? All these kind of things. So how do you think about the maintenance department?
Of course, the answer is it depends. It depends on your particular operation. But just to give you some guidelines, I think if you're at 10 trucks or more, you're of the scale that you probably would benefit from having a dedicated full-time mechanic, right, who's working for you. Now, if that person is just working on the trucks or working on the trucks and planning the scheduled maintenance and doing some of the admin around that, then great. But I think at 10 trucks, you need you benefit from, you can do it without it, but you certainly benefit from having full-time mechanic in your operation. So 10 trucks is where I think that, and maybe if you're running teams or something like that, you could do it shorter, or you could do it with fewer trucks if you have the revenues to justify that. Every time that I've put more money into a maintenance hire, it's paid for itself in a very short period of time. And every time that I've invested in a piece of software or equipment with respect to maintenance, it's paid for itself in a very short period of time. Shockingly so. And so then the bigger you are, the better scale you get. I mean, we're 56 trucks and we have 3 full-time mechanics. And we certainly use vendors, and we're spread across, pretty much across the state of Pennsylvania. So we can't be everywhere all the time. But we probably could do it we probably would benefit by having 5 mechanics instead of 3. It would probably save us on some of that outside vendor types of things. And then again, like we do a lot of our own work. We invested in the software that we use, Volvo and Mack. Those are the trucks that we drive. So we invested in the same software that the dealers use for diagnostics. And we've sent our fleet manager multiple times to different places for training on all of that. So investing in your maintenance personnel is really important for doing the training on all that. So we invested in that software. It paid for itself in 2 months, and we invested in our own air conditioning recovery machine. And so we can do our own AC work in-house, and we're certified to do that. That paid for itself in, a month, of having AC problems with trucks or something like that. So, so I would say, rule of thumb, 10 trucks, and then don't be afraid to invest in your people or in some of those other things, whether it's equipment or software for your maintenance program. In our experience, it's paid for itself very, very quickly.
And I would add to that. I learned a few months ago from one of our customers that if you're going to start your own shop, you're going to have your own mechanic, your truck dealer will offer at your request. They're probably not going to come and offer this to you just out of the blue, but if you kind of request it, a lot of times they will train that mechanic how to do certain things. Like Jim mentioned, using that computer. If you buy that computer from them, they're likely to send a guy out and spend a day in your shop and help you diagnose some issues, right, Jim? And I know that they'll like come to your shop and do jobs that your mechanic might not be qualified to do, like an overhead. And that's a great resource to leverage. That way you're not driving your truck across the state or across town back to the dealer all the time. So just kind of keep that in mind as you grow your maintenance program. So Chris threw in the chat, he thought it was 7 to 10 trucks. So there's another data point. And Tim says mechanics are $1,000 to $1,200 a week, which sounds pretty accurate. So you need to make sure that you can afford, you've got the cash flow, right, to support that hire if you're going to make that hire. Another thing to think about in your shop, if you're going to have a shop, bulk fluids is a really good investment. I don't know, Jim, I'm sure you guys have bulk fluids. You can save a bunch of money by buying 100 gallons of oil at a time.
Yeah, or more.
Right. So, or more. So easy, like really easy stuff that you can do to help control your maintenance costs. And, you might not be at the point where you can have your own shop yet, but as you grow and as you start thinking about that, plan ahead, start to build a plan. Message of the day, build a plan. It looks like Tim is back with us. So
I do have a suggestion for some of the smaller contractors. You don't have to have your own shop in order to do a lot of your own maintenance. So investing in a good service van, right? If you don't have your own shop, if you can hire a mechanic and have a service van, that can do wonders. And we do both. All right, we have service vans, and we actually invested in a big 26-foot service truck that's fully outfitted with a lift gate on the back and all that. You can do that when you have bigger scale, but even a simple like if you can get a Sprinter van, which is what we started with, was a Sprinter van that we added supplies. And if you hire a mechanic, you can go on site and do a ton of these things. That's going to save you a ton of time and a ton of money, and it's going to keep you on the road and making more money. So you don't have to have your own shop to start with.
And the other thing you can do if you've got a van and you're mobile is, guys, every weekend when those trucks are sitting on the yard or whatever day they're sitting on the yard, go out there, like Tim said, do a DOT inspection on those things, right? Don't trust your driver's inspection fully. Go send your mechanic out and do a run through on that truck. It takes Tim? It takes a mechanic half an hour, right? A good mechanic to do a thorough inspection, fix anything outstanding, and then you know that truck is ready to roll the next week. Yeah. So that's.
I agree with Jim. You have to have a shop. I didn't have a shop when I started either. I had a service truck. I still have service trucks that can do remote service if need be. And we certainly look at everything we spend money on in maintenance and try to cost reduce it. So we buy oil for less than $6 a gallon because we buy it in bulk. We buy filters for relatively inexpensively because we struck a deal with a vendor of high quality filters because we use a lot of filters. So if you work those things, you can save money. I am in the middle of negotiating a deal on tires. If you didn't know, that tires are going to get harder and harder to get, and the price has already gone up 4 times this year. And so I'm locking in a deal for tires for a year in advance so that I can lock the price in on tires today so that I can miss the price increases for the next 12 months. But that takes work, and you got to sit down with tire vendors to do that, and you got to find the vendors that you think might work best in your organization. And as I mentioned earlier, my tire vendor that I use is in all the same cities where I operate. They got a pretty good reach. And so then with one corporate account, I can lower the cost of my tire program, which is very expensive. So there's what you're hearing from Jim and what you're hearing from Flint and what you're hearing from me is you have to plan, and it's not planning just, okay, well, I'm going to do a oil change on these tractors every 25,000 miles. It's that, but it's every element of your organization on the maintenance side. You have to plan in advance if you want to limit or reduce or manage the cost of your maintenance operation. And the more you do proactively, the lower the cost of that program, overall cost to your business will be, and therefore the more profitable your business will be. So everything you spend money on in maintenance, find a way to cost reduce it. It's possible to do that. And then as you grow, you will find that if you do more of it in-house, you can buy that labor at a lower cost. Your typical dealer is going to charge you $125 to $150 an hour. And if you pay a mechanic $1,200 a week, labor is costing you $30 an hour. So it's not hard to do that math. And so the quicker you can get somebody on your staff handling your maintenance for you as an employee, you can immediately lower the cost of labor on certain things. Maybe you can't handle some heavy maintenance, but you can do PMs, you can do DOT inspections, you can fix a different issues like airline issues or brake issues or whatever. You can manage that cost down by hiring somebody on your team to do that work at a much lower price than you would pay any kinder or dealer to do that work for you. That's what Jim has done as he grew his company. That's what I've done as I've grown mine.
And I don't want to, we had a webinar on buying trucks, but generally speaking, new truck versus something toward the 500,000 mile range, that 500,000 mile range that you would buy on the used market. How do you guys think about the maintenance expense? The math looks like to me that you're always better, right, to buy the new truck because really it costs you interest, right? And the maintenance on the older truck is going to approach what you're going to pay on interest or more on the new truck. Am I doing that math correctly?
Tim, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, sure. It's not just, I think, Flint, you can make a case. It all depends on how you operate your organization and how well you're capitalized, right? So, you can buy new trucks. They'll be under warranty for the first X thousand, 100,000 miles, whatever you negotiate. In theory, the cost of maintenance is lower during that time because you only have to pay for scheduled maintenance. Unscheduled maintenance, for instance, will be covered by warranty. And it is true that you might just pay interest. There are other options that you can take as well. The problem you have is that $150,000 truck carries a big payment, even if the interest is flexible, shall we say, fungible, and it generates the same revenue as a used tractor. So then the question is how do you manage what you think might be the maintenance cost for a used tractor? Well, I have gone through multiple iterations of this as my company got larger, and I was able to make more cost-effective decisions. As I said in a webinar previously, the most important thing that you can do in your company is find out what works for you in terms of what you're able to do to operate your company financially. And when I got started, I used inexpensive trucks, and they broke more often, but my payments were lower or non-existent, and therefore my revenue, my profit margin was higher than if I could not have afforded to grow my company the way that I have if I only bought new trucks. So there's nothing wrong with buying new trucks. If I was doing teams, I would always buy new tractors because there's a lot of reasons for that. But over the course of time, I've transitioned to where I'm buying really high quality used trucks that are under extended warranty. So now I still have the same protection that you would get under a new tractor, but I'm able to buy that tractor for half the cost. And so from a use of capital standpoint, at least that works better in my business the way I operate. There's lots of folks who have different philosophies that are very, very successful contractors. We had Dave Tomash on earlier in the summer. He's primarily a new truck buyer, and he's incredibly successful. So my counsel is for folks to make sure you understand how you operate your business. What are the finances of your business? What can you do? What can you not do? And you make decisions that work in your business, and you use the concepts that you hear from guys like me or from Jim as ideas, and then you figure out from those ideas what customize to your own business. That's what I recommend that you do.
I'll give you what we do. We only buy new trucks. We don't buy any used trucks. Totally a viable strategy and can work well. And I like the idea of getting some have a warranty and somebody's selling a truck with 200,000 miles on it. I'm going to want to know, why are they selling that truck? Is there something wrong with that truck? So we tend to buy new. The other reason why we like to buy new is we spec our trucks to our own satisfaction, right? To what we want on those trucks. For example, I'm in the process of upgrading my fleet to all disc brakes, right? And so I've got about 20% of my fleet now that's all disc brakes and not the regular drum brakes. That's a pure safety, it's safety and maintenance decision. They're safer. They have better stopping distance. And when you do have brake jobs, you do them less frequently, and it's cheaper to do whenever you have the disc brakes. So we're ordering new trucks to our specs. As an example, we're doing that. So, but then what we do, we feel good about our maintenance program. We tend to hold our trucks for a long time and use our trucks for a long time. And so I've got 10% of my fleet is well over 1 million miles on those trucks. And when I analyze what my cost of ownership is, including not just the interest, but also the principal and interest on buying those trucks versus what the maintenance costs are on those trucks as you get into higher mileage, they're running pretty consistently similar, right? So you can sell your trucks at 500,000 miles. If you get a good residual value and buy new trucks, you can keep doing that. Or you can hold your trucks a longer time. I think that over time we've been more profitable by getting more longevity out of our trucks. But that's only if you have a good maintenance program and you're maintaining those things. The other thing that's I don't know if this is insightful or not. I haven't purchased a standard truck in the past 6 years. All of the trucks that I bought are automatics. And I think you even have to special order if you want standards at this point. But if you look at the warranty, a new truck warranty on a manual transmission, it's 250,000 miles. If you look at the warranty on a automatic transmission or a 12-speed like the Volvo I-Shift, it's 750,000 miles. The reason for that is they just don't break as much, right? You have less wear and tear, there's less torque on it, et cetera, et cetera. You get more longevity out of that. And in our experience, the same is held true for the engines. Whenever I've had an engine problem with any of my, higher mileage trucks, that's tended to be on standard transmissions, not on automatics. And so I don't think I've had a major engine problem with any automatic truck, that I have, irrespective of the mileage on them. And so, like Tim said, you're going to find your own comfort level, right? There are going to be some people who just aren't comfortable. Hey, I don't want to take the risk of a major catastrophic, engine failure. It's going to cost me 30 or 40 grand to fix this, or, my truck is worthless after. If that's something that makes you lose sleep at night, don't do it, right? Trade it in, buy new, lease a truck, whatever. You don't have to. You can make money by managing it well in a variety of different ways. You have to do what you're comfortable with. We're to the point where we like our trucks, and we like not having those payments on those trucks after a while.
Yep. So it comes back to, you got to do that maintenance, guys. You got to have that good maintenance program to make them last. Yep. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. I think in that new FedEx contract, now FedEx is going to start, Tim, I think you were telling me this last week, they're going to start comparing your maintenance forms to your manufacturer's suggested maintenance schedule to try and assess if you are performing scheduled maintenance when you should. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the thing that we sometimes forget as FedEx ground contractors, when we just say, oh, well, FedEx, we run under the FedEx DOT number, well, they're still responsible for having all the records that are required for anybody who operates their own authority. And so one of the reasons that you have to turn in that document, the systematic maintenance inspection interval form, when you put a tractor on to get a new tractor number, is that you then specify what are the standard maintenance interval inspection requirements based on mileage for that particular tractor. And they require you, if you recall, that you're to provide the inspection intervals that are from the manufacturer of the tractor. And if you specify a different manufacturing interval, you have to, or inspection interval, you have to explain why you're doing that. And so they keep that form on file, and then we submit monthly maintenance reports every month. And that's another required document for someone that runs their own authority. So what FedEx is going to start to do is compare your, assuming their systems can manage it, which I'm skeptical of, but in theory anyway, they're going to compare your monthly maintenance report program to what you said you would do whenever you turned in your SMII form. And that's going to become a compliance requirement. And so that puts more pressure on you to actually manage your maintenance, right? So the manufacturer of the tractor is going to specify those inspection intervals, and then you're going to be held accountable to maintaining that tractor as per those inspection intervals. Now, you can inspect more often, and I'm sure Jim is doing that. I know I'm doing that, but you can't inspect something that's a 250,000 mile interval every 500,000 miles. You're going to have issues with that. So you need to put in place a program that Jim has, something like I have, that keeps track of those intervals and how far along you are on those intervals, because it will become a contract compliance issue. Now, how they're going to notify you of that and how they're going to do it, I think that remains to be seen. I think we all are a little skeptical of FedEx's technology. But if you look at, so I'm transitioning, as I mentioned earlier, from managing my maintenance program strictly by spreadsheet, and I'm transitioning to using the program that has been built in TruckSpy. And the biggest advantage that has, and Jim has talked about it in the tool that John Hawley built for him, is that it automatically updates the mileage associated with that tractor on a specific frequency. Is it daily? Is it weekly or whatever? But there's no more manual collection of what is the mileage on that tractor and plugging it into a spreadsheet and then adjusting the formulas to tell you when this is done or when this is due or that is due. In the TruckSpy program, they are monitoring your ELDs already. So then they're updating the mileage on your tractors on a regular basis. And then that updates all these systematic maintenance interval requirements, because we provided that to TruckSpy. And now we have all those specified out. So what I've decided to do now is, most of you know that I also have a software company called My Ground Force, which is very similar to a resource planning program like SAP or Oracle for line haul contractors. And pretty much every aspect of your organization, we've automated it. And one of the things that we were waiting to do was to automate the maintenance portion. And so what we're going to do is import, for TruckSpy customers, we'll be able to import that information directly into My Ground Force, and you'll be able to manage your maintenance intervals right in the My Ground Force tool. And then we'll take that information a step further and provide you a maintenance calendar that says, hey, here's the month of September. And, you know, on the 3rd, this tractor needs a PM, and on the 10th, this tractor needs this service, and on the 22nd, this tractor needs something else. And we'll essentially do maintenance planning for you once we have the mileage information that Flint's able to collect through TruckSpy. And so if you utilize the technology, and Flint's talked about this a lot, and Jim talked about it at the front of this conversation, you can take your maintenance planning efforts to a much higher level just by leveraging the technology tools that are available. And there's some really good stuff out there. Flint's tool is really good. We're going to take it into our system and add a couple things to it. And in this way, you'll know what those intervals are. And then you'll be able to know from a compliance perspective, we're going to create a compliance verification and give you a report on those things that are coming up in order for you to remain compliant with the new contract with respect to where you are in your maintenance program versus the maintenance interval.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how FedEx tracks. I want to interject and answer Will's question real quick. Will asked, how do you accomplish this with ELD? Will, the ELD is taking ECM odometer readings so you can grab those out of OmniTrax or People's Net or wherever. TruckSpy accesses those programmatically, so it's the same data, just delivered differently. That's how we are calculating scheduled maintenance. If you know odometer on this day, odometer on that day, what's the difference, right? What's the maintenance interval? Compare all those things, and that's Jim. That's what your spreadsheet is doing. So that's how that is technically happening. Jim, what are your thoughts on this new FedEx contract requirement? Is this actually going to happen?
I don't know if it's going to happen. I haven't paid too close of attention to this particular aspect of the contract. I was more focused on what our pay increase was or wasn't.
Wasn't, yeah.
Yeah. So
you mean lack of pay increase?
So I haven't focused on this particular thing that closely, because I think that we're doing things that are already more frequent or shorter intervals than what the manufacturers recommend, right? So our oil changes are done more frequently than what Volvo recommends, and we've automated our process for creating our monthly maintenance reports with all of the records included in that. And I think, Tim, you had said it early on, the importance of keeping your records. I agree with that 100%. What we have developed, again, with Haldy's help, is we have both an electronic file and a paper copy for every truck, right? By truck. So you can look at it historically, chronologically for every maintenance item. And it's also in a database, so we can look up, when did I do the injectors on that, or when did I change the brakes on it, or whatever. So having that electronically, and we actually print it out into a binder format as well, that our mechanics use all the time. Hey, when was this truck in for that, right? And they just flip through it. Sometimes it's quicker and easier for them than walking over to the desk and looking at the computer or whatever. So back to your question, Flint, I haven't focused that much on it because I think we're probably.
But you're not worried about it because you've got the records right.
No.
Because you've already got the process.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I can produce the records that they're going to ask for on any truck in about 30 seconds. So
right. So no big deal. And again, this is the advantage of having a well thought out and automated maintenance program. You'll meet this requirement easily. So as we got a few minutes left, I want to throw out, and this is a complete 180 from the current discussion. We are thinking about hosting a line haul specific convention in Dallas, maybe sometime next summer in July. Jim, I think you've heard about this idea, right? You're in, you'll be there. And Tim is helping us organize it. So Tim will be there. I'm going to throw a poll out real quick just to see if we had this convention next summer in Dallas, would you attend this? Yes or no, or maybe. Just a real quick back of the envelope check here, guys, to gauge interest as we're planning this thing. Mostly yeses. That's what I like to hear. Very good. So while those come in, I want to grab Hadley's question. Hadley asks, do you do reserves for replacement of equipment? Hadley, I think that the answer to that is it. I mean, everybody is doing it. They're not necessarily moving dollars into a bank account, but on your financials, you know what your depreciation is. And how many miles your trucks are running and when they're going to need to be replaced. So this is, like Tim said earlier in the conversation, this is really part of your capital allocation process. And as a business owner, you're having to project forward, right? To say, I know I've got 10 trucks and 3 of them need to be replaced next year. So I need to, if I'm going to buy new trucks, I need to be able to write a $450,000 check, or whether that's a combination of cash or financing, right? So this is just part of your business planning. And if you don't have an Excel, a model with your financials and your CapEx, I suggest that you build one, maybe a topic for a future webinar. I don't want to really have to teach people to use Excel, but we could probably distribute some type of primer on that. And there's plenty of information on the internet about making capital decisions and projecting CapEx. Great. So our poll sounds like a lot of people would be interested in that convention. We got no no's. I don't know if that's self-selection bias. You're on the webinar, so you're obviously interested in the topics. One other thing I want to throw out, guys, if you've enjoyed this webinar, in 2 weeks from today on the 16th, we're going to have another webinar that is about optimizing your insurance. And we're going to talk about non-trucking liability. We're going to talk about workers' comp. We're going to have some potential insurance vendors on the call to talk about their products and how they're doing things differently. So if you have not spent time thinking about your insurance, if you've just gone out and dialed the Marsh phone number that's on all the everything that FedEx hands you, you might want to just take a minute and think, am I making the right decision financially and operationally? So we're going to dive into that. It's going to be a really good session, kind of like this one was. So if you have not registered for that, feel free to register. And this is kind of the last call for questions. Hadley says, thanks for your service to our country, Tim, and for all the great information. So if you've got any last minute questions, guys, now is the time. We've got a couple of minutes left. I want to use this time to thank Jim and Tim both for being here and taking some time and sharing their expertise with us today. I found it really valuable. I learned a few things. Jim, Tim, is there anything else that you'd like to add as the session wraps up?
No, just encourage everybody to ask questions or share information and try to make the whole community better. There's a lot of work to be done for FedEx that we all have plenty to do. So if we can learn from each other and help each other get better, I think that helps that helps all of us.
Amen. Yep.
I would echo that. I appreciate the chance to participate. Jim's a very highly respected contractor, and I've learned a lot today myself from some of the things that he's doing in his organization, and I'll find ways to use them in mine. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Flint will provide you the contact information. And the summit that we're trying to pull together in Dallas is strictly focused on how do we help you get better at being a FedEx ground contractor and have smart people like Jim Vorzik around to share best practices and create the kind of training that you never get as a FedEx ground contractor. So we're trying to put that together on an annual basis so that you'll have a way to.
Yeah, it's going to be these webinars on steroids. Basically, we're gonna pack 2 days full of this type of content is the goal. So, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us as guests today. I really appreciate all the participants for taking an hour out of their day. Hopefully you learned something and you'll come back. We've got 2 webinars left in the summer series, and then we're going to take a break while everybody delivers Christmas presents and probably has a lot of stress in their lives over the next couple of months. So again, thank you for being here, and we hope that you have a great rest of the week and stay after it. Stay focused on your businesses, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Flint.
Yeah. All right, bye-bye.
Appreciate it. I'll take care.